Before CGI, before billion-dollar space epics, before science fiction became spectacle, there was a decade when filmmakers dared to imagine the end of the world or life beyond it with grit, atmosphere, and raw creativity. The 1960s gave us some of the most fascinating and most overlooked science fiction films ever made. Some were ambitious, some were controversial, some were ahead of their time. Tonight, we are revisiting 7 forgotten sci-fi gems that deserve a second look. Let's begin on Mars. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964. When Robinson Crusoe on Mars arrived in 1964, it took a centuries-old survival story and launched it into outer space. Inspired by Daniel Defoe's classic novel, the film replaces a deserted island with the unforgiving surface of Mars. Instead of a shipwrecked sailor, we follow an astronaut stranded millions of miles from Earth, forced to survive using nothing but his training, his intellect, and sheer willpower. At a time when science fiction leaned heavily into alien invasions and Cold War paranoia, this film took a more grounded approach. Director Byron Haskin, known for War of the Worlds, pursued a tone of scientific plausibility. Reports suggest NASA advisors were consulted to give the survival elements technical credibility. The Martian terrain was not entirely studio-built. Much of it was filmed in California's Death Valley, whose harsh landscapes convincingly doubled as the Red Planet. Cinematographer Winton C. Hawk used bold natural lighting and stark color contrast to create an alien atmosphere without digital effects. Paul Manty carries the film largely on his own as Major Christopher Draper, delivering a restrained performance that explores isolation long before space survival stories became mainstream. Released the same year as Goldfinger and Mary Poppins, it was overshadowed at the box office, but today its practical effects and earnest storytelling feel refreshingly sincere, a precursor to modern survival epics like The Martian. While other sci-fi films imagined threats from outer space, The Day the Earth Caught Fire warned of something far more realistic: humanity itself. The story begins with simultaneous United States and Soviet nuclear tests that knock Earth off its axis. The consequences are catastrophic. Global temperatures rise, weather patterns collapse, civilization teeters on the brink. Directed by Val Guest, the film unfolds largely inside a newspaper office, grounding its apocalyptic premise in the everyday grind of journalism. That decision makes the disaster feel disturbingly plausible. The film's warm, almost sepia-tinted visuals evoke suffocating heat, reinforcing the sense that the planet itself is unraveling. Its ending remains famously ambiguous. 2 newspaper headlines are prepared, one hopeful, one catastrophic. The film never confirms which becomes reality. Was redemption possible, or was it already too late? Many critics now recognize it as an early example of socially conscious science fiction, paving the way for more philosophical films later in the decade. In 1962, British cinema delivered one of its strangest eco-horror nightmares. After a meteor shower blinds much of humanity, carnivorous walking plants begin their slow takeover. Adapted from John Wyndham's novel, The Day of the Triffids blends creature feature thrills with Cold War anxiety and environmental dread. Production challenges reportedly shaped the final film. Additional scenes were directed by Freddie Francis, including a lighthouse subplot that some critics say feels disconnected from the main storyline. Despite uneven pacing, its imagery has endured, particularly the haunting hospital awakening sequence, which has drawn comparisons to later apocalyptic films like 28 Days Later. What begins as science fiction slowly becomes something more philosophical, a warning about nature reclaiming dominance. In 1966, Queen of Blood quietly fused space exploration with gothic horror. Directed by Curtis Harrington and produced under Roger Corman's famously tight budgets, the film incorporated footage from Soviet science fiction movies, blending them into a new, eerie narrative. At its center is Florence Marley as the alien queen, silent, green-skinned, hypnotic. She barely speaks, yet commands every scene with unsettling presence. Long before Alien redefined sci-fi horror, this film hinted at parasitic terror and body horror themes. Featuring early appearances by Dennis Hopper and John Saxon, the film was dismissed at release but later reassessed as an imaginative cult classic. Sometimes innovation is not recognized until years later. While many 60s sci-fi films leaned optimistic, the Flesh Eaters chose a darker path. Stranded on an isolated island, its characters face microscopic organisms that dissolve human flesh. Directed by Jack Curtis, the film's unrelenting tone and graphic effects shocked audiences. Some regions reportedly censored portions due to its disturbing imagery. Though dismissed at the time, modern horror historians see it as an early precursor to splatter cinema, foreshadowing elements found in The Thing and The Evil Dead. Quiet, intimate, and unsettling, Unearthly Stranger strips science fiction down to psychological paranoia. A scientist begins to suspect his wife may not be human, but an alien infiltrator. Shot in stark black and white, the film uses minimal effects and maximum tension. Beneath its sci-fi premise lies a metaphor for Cold War distrust, the fear that danger might already be inside the home. Long before The Stepford Wives, this film explored emotional alienation and identity. Today, in an age of artificial intelligence and digital personas, its central question feels even more chilling. What if you cannot trust appearances? Finally, there is The Terrornauts, a British sci-fi oddity that stumbled at release but later gained cult appreciation. Astronomers intercept a strange signal from space, only to be abducted and enlisted by aliens to help defend Earth. Produced by Amicus and reportedly filmed on a tight schedule at Shepperton Studios, the film reused sets and props to stretch its budget. Critics were unimpressed, but fans admire its earnest ambition and imaginative spirit, often comparing its tone to early Doctor Who. Financially, it faltered. Creatively, it aimed high. And sometimes that is enough to make a film memorable. These films may not have had massive budgets or blockbuster success, but they had imagination, atmosphere, and the courage to take risks. If you enjoy exploring forgotten classics like these, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know which overlooked sci-fi film we should revisit next. Because sometimes the most fascinating stories are the ones history almost forgot.